Chapter 10, Scene by Scene. There are many ways to create scenes. Some writers just write what they imagine and trust that it works as part of the larger work. I have to admit, despite being an extreme planner, I fall into this bucket. Others pay careful attention to the bones of each scene and ensure it includes each part. What parts, you wonder? So glad you asked. What is a scene? A scene is a self-contained portion of a longer work, such as a book. It's a building block of the novel. They can vary in length, but usually take place in one area, between one or a group of characters. Scenes make up chapters, then chapters make up books. Usually, a change of setting means a change of scene. There are exceptions, of course, but this is the general rule. Think of when a movie cuts to black between one place and another, that's a scene break. What should be in a scene? While not every scene must have all of these, like the link to the next scene, a good scene contains most of them. Some setting or surroundings, be it the kitchen, the edge of a cliff, or on the deck of a spaceship. At least one character engaging in something, be it action, internal musings, or dialogue. Its own mini-story, with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Rising tension or conflict, which can be internal or external, obvious or subtle. Move the story or character forward. Something should change, be it the character's attitude, knowledge, or the world around them. A strong ending. See if cutting the last lines or paragraphs increases the tension in a cliffhanger. A link to the next scene. Methods of scene construction. Scene and sequel. Scene and sequel is a well-known storywriting technique where each high-tension scene is followed by a sequel designed to rest and reset the action of the next high-tension scene. The sequel part allows the character to process and react to the prior scene and to prepare for the next one. It's an effective technique, and I know many authors use it either intentionally or instinctually. I don't always use it, but I've often found myself following it without realizing. Each scene should have a goal, conflict, or disaster. Each sequel should have reaction, dilemma, or decision. String those together within the larger arc of rising tension to each major conflict. Save the Cat! Save the Cat! Is a book by Blake Snyder on how to write a screenplay using story beats or checkpoints. They also have one on novels now. They boil film plot structure down to 15 beats, along with suggested page numbers for each beat, into a template authors can use. I'm not personally a fan of this strict format, though I'm sure it works better for screenplays than novels. However, many authors find great value from their suggestions and use them to their advantage. Planning your scene. In order to plan out a scene, you want to first identify the purpose of the scene. Is this where you plant a red herring that will throw off your readers, thinking the murderer is someone innocent? Or do your two protagonists meet for the first time? Maybe your sidekick character is severely injured, giving your protagonist a tough decision to leave them behind or fight for them. The purpose of the scene will set the tone, structure, and details for you. If you followed the earlier planning, you've already got the purpose of the scene in your handy-dandy spreadsheet. Each one-sentence description should distill the main reason for including the scene. You can add to that with secondary purposes, weaving in subplots and themes, and make the scene fit into the whole in a cohesive manner. However, I usually end up doing things like that on my second draft, as I don't know the entire story yet on my first draft. Yes, even me as an extreme planner, do pantsing during my first draft. I can't help it. Sometimes characters just refuse to do what you planned for them. It often gets messy. Regardless of your process, if you start with a solid structure, editing is easier. I like to imagine my scene from the top, as if literally looking down on it. What's the first thing I see? Where my characters are. Are they sitting in a wooded glade around a campfire? In an office filled with cubicles? On an airplane diving toward a mountain? Giving just a sentence or two of setting helps the reader anchor themselves into place and time. It also helps set the mood. Don't bludgeon the reader with descriptions, though. While a few salient points literally set the scene, 3 paragraphs on the shade of blue for the curtains will make your readers throw the book against the wall. That's especially dangerous if they're reading an ebook. Do include senses other than sight. The dank, earthy scent of mushrooms growing on the tree. The stench of the factory smoke next door. The sound of cars whooshing by on the wet pavement. In addition, consider when to start the scene. Do you have a lot of small actions that don't add to the final story? Consider chopping off the first half and starting the scene in media residential or in the middle of the action. Next, move in closer. Who is in the scene? Is there more than one person? Are they interacting? Is it dialogue or action? Is there friendliness or tension? Does that change during the scene? A strong scene often has rising tension. Does the scene forward the character arc? The plotline? Does it introduce a subplot, or complicate one? Introduce a new side character? Most important, what does the character want in the scene? Every scene should have a goal, even if it's only a cup of water. That desire drives the purpose of the scene. Does your character solve a problem, or create a new one? Or are they recovering from the battle in the last scene? What else must be accomplished in this scene? The last part of the scene should end on a high moment, something that makes the reader want to continue to the next chapter. Does your character get their goal? Or make it harder to achieve it? Are they foiled by an antagonist or their own poor decisions? How do they need to proceed in the next scene? While it seems like a cheap ploy, cliffhangers are excellent at this. In my current WIP, I have a pilot about to land by moonlight on an unfamiliar airstrip. I cut the scene just before the plane hits the ground. If your scene seems limp and useless, check it for the above points. It may be missing an essential item. Tweaking or rewriting the scene to include might save it from drowning in mediocrity.